Hi, my name is Frank Schaeffer. I am an author and a painter, and I have written such books as my memoir, Crazy for God, about my journey out of evangelical fundamentalism in which I was raised back in the day. And you know, the model of male-female relationships I grew up with was one of a patriarchal, white-dominated society. My father was a kind man and a gentle man, but also someone cast in that traditional mold. And my mom was a very powerful person, a sort of a proto-pre-feminist in the actual household, very strong, and in their ministry of L'Abri Fellowship that they started in 1952, really running things in a way, much more than my father. But the formal relationship was one of dominant male hierarchy. And that's how I grew up, and something I had to unlearn, not only when I fled the evangelical subculture, but when I fled my own worst male patriarchal demons. And when I say fled, I don't mean this battle has been achieved. You can ask my wife, Jeannie. We've been together almost 50 years now. I got her pregnant when we were teenagers, and we have 3 grown children and 5 grandchildren. Our oldest grandchildren are in college, the age of most of my friends' kids who waited longer. And my youngest grandchildren live across the street from me, and I care for them. In the morning, I take the littlest one, who's 3, and I keep her all day long, and Jeannie and I trade off. I take the little one in the mornings, I do the school run in the morning and the evenings, and then every evening I gather my 3 grandchildren and I cook for them. And I put real china on the table, and I drink my wine, and I read to them, and we cook, and it's a 5-day-a-week ritual. By the way, I'm not bragging. Okay, I'm bragging, but I am a very good cook, and I love cooking. My mom let me fry eggs and bacon when I was just 3 back in the day, and I've cooked ever since. It's a pleasure to me. I can't understand people who, by the way, send out for food or go to restaurants or stop by a fast food joint and pass up the beauty and the pleasure of a family gathering. What I want to mention today is, you know, I have friends. I came out of the movie business. I directed 3 shitty feature films. Oh, wait a minute, 4 shitty feature films in Hollywood, the last being Baby on Board with Judge Reinhold and Carol Kane, and Nothing You Want to See. And then I wrote a novel called Portofino and got out of that business altogether and became a successful enough writer to earn a living for someone no one else has ever heard of except those few people who read my books. And I'm also a painter. I dumped it when I was in the religious right, and then I as a quote leader with my dad in that nepotistic relationship as we started the so-called pro-life movement before I bailed. And I came back to it about 12 years ago and have an art sale going on my art site, frankschaefferart.com. By the way, nothing for sale there right now. It's all sold. I've got a new show on the way. But what I want to mention here is that people ask me in the literary world and the movie world, and my friends, you know, how have you and Jeannie stayed together for the better part of 50 years, and why do you appear to be happy? Is this real? And my answer is yes. And by the way, you know, I'm the asshole in our relationship, and I'm not just saying that. That's true. Jeannie is golden, and I'm a jerk. Less of a jerk now than I used to be. So this is not some guy telling you I'm judging other people whose marriages have not worked, or far be it from me. But what I'm going to say applies to my gay friends and heterosexual friends and transgender friends and everybody else. We live in a materialistic consumer society that has put money, career, prestige, and position ahead of everything. Put it this way, if you wanted to design a society that creates alpha asshole females and alpha asshole males, this is it. So the Feminist Studies Department, the Women's Studies Department has a message for young women, and that is that you can be as men are and more powerful than men. And the men in this world go to Wall Street and Silicon Valley and lord it over women and don't hire them. And it's this kind of competition of the sexes. If you bring this into a relationship, whether you're gay or straight, single, married or not, but you're trying to form a relationship, or if you bring it into the way you relate to your children and just other human beings in general outside of work, you are going to become a walking disaster. That is what I have observed in 64 years of being on this planet, almost 65. When people ask me how my relationship has survived, it's because I learned to be less of an alpha asshole male, and my wife Jeannie looked around her and chose a feminist path of empowerment. She ran a small publishing company, and she does all our tax work and does all our investment work. I don't even know where our damn checkbooks are. She's in charge, but not because she said I'm in charge, because she's better at it. We found our division of labor. I do all the cooking, and believe me, it has nothing to do with sharing domestic responsibilities in some sort of chart we drew up based on fairness and so forth. It has to do with the fact that I'm a really good cook and she likes to bake, and that's how we do it. We both do dishes, we both do some cleaning. We don't chart it out. We just kind of found our way. But the reason we found our way is we both gave up on this bullshit about being an alpha dominant person within the relationship. That doesn't mean we don't scream and fight. Sometimes we fight so bad we leave each other for a while, and then we've come back together, and love that day means we hate each other a little less than we would if we didn't love each other. And you might understand that if you're in a relationship that's been long term. But what I want to say is that, you know, when I read about sexual advice for people in the press, especially the Huffington Post or Salon or Alternate and all this, it all has to do with the anatomy of an orgasm. I mean, if I read one more piece on female orgasms or male impotence or anything like that, I'll scream. The anatomy of an orgasm has nothing to do with love or longevity or marriage. Sex is good within a relationship when sex is part of a larger picture of closeness, of forgiveness, of humility, of compassion, of putting someone else first. I really feel sorry for this current generation who have been raised by people staring at iPhones and iPads and laptops instead of making eye contact with their children. The saddest thing in the world to me is watching a parent hand a child an electronic device instead of reading them a story, teaching them to cook. You know, I have a log under the swing set that my grandchildren called the Bug Zoo. And from the time they're literally 1.5, they flip it over to see what's crawling around underneath. My males and female grandchildren are not scared to touch bugs, and they pick up worms and they play with them and they talk to them. It's no big deal, but it's a tactile relationship that I'd rather have them have with nature than staring at some damn program on a screen, or God forbid a video game that involves, you know, monster insects chasing you or whatever it may be. So here's a few basic things. Put the people in your life first, not the tech devices you used as a distraction. Put that, excuse the language, fucking phone down once in a while. Turn the goddamn thing off, and your computer and everything else, and just focus in real time on what it means to be a human being. Second, get rid of all the alpha bullshit, whether it's feminist or male domination. It's all crap. You want to have a real relationship? Then learn something from Christianity. And no, I'm not a Bible-believing Christian anymore, but learn this. Conversion is possible. I don't mean to Jesus. I mean to a better way of life. So you may come into a relationship with some, you know, second or third or fourth or sixth wave feminist idea about your rights and everything you've got to do. Put it all aside. The reality is it's like children. It's like young parents who think that all kids are the same, and if you come up with this formula for education or feeding them, it'll work. Wait until you have a second child or a third child, and you'll notice that they're all different. The same with relationships. Don't come in with preconceived ideas. And lastly, commit. I hate to see young people thinking that sex is about entertainment and commitment is for idiots, and they've got to go do a startup in Silicon Valley first or get that master's degree so they can earn more and have a better position. What you earn, what you do for a living, who you are is not dependent on any of these things. It's the quality of what you see reflected back in the eyes of the people who know you best and love you. That's the only mirror to trust. Not what you learned in women's studies, not what you learned in Silicon Valley, not what you learned from an economics professor at the Harvard Business School. Life isn't about that. The great equalizer is what you see reflected back in the eyes of the people who really know you. Thank you. My name is Frank Schaeffer.